Well, folks, our journey through the salad days of total nonstop action 20 years later continues this week on the Classic Review. When you get down to it, TNA was super innovative during this time. I mean, they predicted the model of taking a gimmick match and putting it on pay-per-view over and over again until the concept is totally dead, far before WWE did that, because, 3 years before the first Hell in a Cell pay-per-view takes place, we have the second ever every match a cage match. I'm talking about TNA Lockdown 2006 from April 23rd at the Impact Zone in Orlando, Florida. This show was nominated by Russell Pierce over at patreon.com/wrestlingwithregret. Just to catch you up on what happened at Destination X the previous month, Sting came back from his retirement to take the fight to Jeff Jarrett for harassing him and his family. And then Scott Steiner debuted for the company as part of Jeff Jarrett's ever-growing army of baddie heels. And then, of course, there's more conspiracies. Ooh, they love conspiracies in TNA. And of course, because this is just that time of the year, every match tonight, no matter whether or not the storyline requires it, is going to be in a cage, dadgummit. 6 sides of steel, let's go! Also a quick update / clarification on something I said in my last TNA review, where I was wondering, why are they name-dropping Goldberg so heavily, in the Samoa Joe promo? And then a few people reminded me that yes, TNA actually was in talks with Goldberg around this time, as strange as that may sound, but then again, they were in talks with a lot of people. Remember, 06-07 is their real big expansion year where they're trying to sign as many people as they can. They've got, they got Sting here, they're gonna get Kurt Angle, they got Scott Steiner, they want Goldberg, they want Jericho. There's gonna be they got Buff Bagwell and Lex Luger recently. Let's not forget about that. The theme of this month's hype package is Abyss walking around a big, empty, abandoned prison or asylum or something, while we hear narration about this being the most dangerous pay-per-view. They even say viewer discretion advised, which really just means like there's gonna be 2 or 3 more blade jobs in this show than a typical pay-per-view. Ooh! Then all of a sudden the narration switches over to James Mitchell, who's communicating to Christian, where he says, "Can you enter the 6 sides of steel and defend your title with the cool head, the poise, and the grace of a champion? Or has the monster Abyss so violated your personal boundaries and dignity?" Then we get like a couple of seconds of Joe and Sabu hype, Jarrett bleeds for half a second somewhere, and then they're hyping the lethal lockdown. It's Sting's revenge as he takes on Jeff Jarrett. I love at the end of this package, like they're doing this distortion effect where they make the voice sound deep and scary. It's so good, the lines they use for it. It's very graphic.
Are you prepared to die? I'm gonna grab your heart and rip it right out of your chest.
The Impact Zone is hyped for this. 775 people are in the building. 45,000 pay-per-view buys is up a fair amount from last month's show. And hey, it's the first match of a TNA pay-per-view. You know what time it is. You know them. You love them. The X Division undercard. Give them a round of applause as Sonjay, Dutt, Elix, Shelley, and Jay Lethal, representing Team USA, take on Minoru, Hiroki, Goto, and Black Tiger, aka Rocky Romero. They are representing Team New Japan Pro Wrestling. They're hyping this up as a big preview for the World Cup series that's going to be taking place over the next month or so in the Impact Zone. And boy, looking at reading the Observer during this time, it's a real mess in the preparation for this, particularly on the Mexico side of things, because between injuries, visa issues, and just plain old politics between AAA and CMLL, there is just a lot of uncertainty as to who's actually going to be filling the Mexico side of things in this series. Another big X factor in this matchup is Elix Shelley, who is part of Jarrett's camp, and he's strangely been like this real big accessory to a lot of crime in TNA. Like if anyone needs video of someone doing something heinous, it's like, hey, Elix Shelley, your gimmick is you have a camera, you be part of this. So it's like the whole story here is like, does he have his own agenda separate from what Team USA is doing? Starting out with Shelley and Minoru, then Black Tiger comes in. I love this trip up he does on Shelley mid-leapfrog. Nice triple teaming by Team USA. The fans are loving it. And speaking of loving it, we see Sonjay getting worked over, and then, is that the guy from the McDonald's commercial? It's Shocker, Puma, and Magno from Team Mexico looking on from the stage. Then we see Team Japan with a triple drop kick. Then we get this amazing moment. It's not even like a spot that wowed me. It was just a moment that made me laugh. Like as Sonjay is getting all the heat, and there's this point where the fans are like trying to clap along to cheer him on. You see Minoru just pick Sonjay's hand up and go like, like with his own hand. I thought that was the funniest thing. Jay Lethal with the hot tag. He's all over Black Tiger. Shelley comes in, hits a nice frog splash. They keep trying moves and pinfalls. Sonjay with a shooting star that's all knees. We get the Minoru special, that cross arm breaker, but the hold's broken up. Shelley accidentally kicks Sonjay in the dome. It's down to Lethal by himself, and a tiger suplex by Black Tiger for the win for Team New Japan. I'll give it 2.5 stars out of 5. I think the match had a few strong moments. I thought this was like a solid X Division 6-man matchup. Did not need the cage to be there. It's one of many matches on this show where the cage is really more of a hindrance or just more of a thing where you go, like, you really think they would have done more because the X Division's all about no limits, but it felt like they were awful limited in what they could actually do here. Mike Tenay and Don West on the call. Team Mountain Dew are breaking down the unique nature of the show, some of the big matches on tap. Then we go over to Jeremy Borash in the Toy Zone, showing off the 6 sides of steel action figure playset. Then the camera moves over and he's talking to Team 3D, who will be in an Anthem match against Team Canada. And I guess Bully Ray is still very much stuck in the mindset of Destination X the previous month, because in this promo, JB, it's all about war. And he says, tonight the war ends. Tonight is not about titles, it's about pride and respect for your colors, for your country, and pride for your national anthem. And he goes, and I'd rather go work for that miserable company up in Stamford, Connecticut than have to listen to that Canadian national anthem again. And then Brother Devon's like, whoa, do you really mean that? Like, are you serious, man? And then Ray just goes, no, I was just ribbing you guys. Oh, wow, great rib. Very convincing. Yes, tell us more how miserable that company in Stamford is next week on Busted Open Radio. Then in walks Leisure Suit Larry. Larry Zbyszko here with his gaudiest look to date. The money print button up, the bright blue blazer on top. But for some reason, that's not the big question as to what the hell are you wearing. The big question is from Zbyszko saying, hey, do you guys know anything about this big announcement from TNA management tonight? And JB's got no idea, but man, is there something even the head of the championship committee, Larry Zbyszko, doesn't know about? So last month at Destination X, Christopher Daniels had the big heroic redemption, regaining the X Division championship in the Ultimate X match. But then on the Thursday night debut for Spike TV a few weeks later, Joe beat him to regain the belt. So now Daniels has a big opportunity to go one-on-one with Jushin Liger, was the original plan, but apparently Liger backed out of this matchup because he didn't want his first ever cage match to be a preliminary match on a pay-per-view with no heat. Smart choice by Liger there. So ultimately, Daniels now is facing a mystery opponent in the 6 sides of steel. Who's it going to be? Folks, it's the SpongeBob meme come to life. The inspiration for that recent Kyle Fletcher clip you might have seen of him in the hotel hallway, formerly known as Low Key. It's Senshi making his return to TNA. Daniels is looking like he's seen a ghost. These two do have a history. They bring up on commentary that these two were part of Triple X in the early days of TNA, former tag team champions together. And all I can really think of when this match is about to begin is, man, there's a lot of bald heads in that ring. Senshi still getting some low-key chants as the match goes on. It'll take a minute for it to stick. We get Daniels with our first real cage usage of the match. Suplex into the wall, brother! Senshi ducks a line, hits a big old dropkick into the corner. Daniels is high and tight with a Death Valley driver. The BME, the kick out, the Super Angel's wings are blocked. Senshi goes for a double stomp, but he misses. Another Angel's wings is blocked. We get a backdrop with the pin. Senshi putting his feet on the ropes for leverage, and he wins. I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. I think it was a pretty good match. Daniels and Senshi have great chemistry together, and they're able to put that to good use in this one. A little bit more use of the cage in this one compared to the previous match for sure. And this is the beginning of what's going to be a very long unbeaten streak for Senshi. He's going to go on to win the X Division Championship in a little bit. I do remember vaguely like the online commotion after this big re-debut for Low Key and everything, because he's still very highly sought after, still very much a huge name in the independent scene. He hasn't quite burned a bunch of bridges yet. He still has a little bit of baggage. The baggage is growing, but you know, it's going to be interesting to see where this return, where it goes for him and how he's able to grow. JB is with BG, BA, and BB. Bullet Bob Armstrong actually has a great promo here, very old school, getting ready for that arm wrestling match against Konnan, speaking with passion and conviction. My favorite line in this promo is where he says how his knee screams Konnan's name every time he takes a step. Oh God, that is such great imagery. So yeah, Konnan still afraid of 66-year-old Bullet Bob Armstrong here. The war between LAX and the James Gang still going on months after it first blew up. We are finally going to have the blow off and the resolution here. 6 sides of steel. It's finally coming down to this. Konnan, Bob Armstrong, steel cage match. Arm wrestling style. Ooh, fuck yeah, brother. They were going to have an arm wrestling contest on Impact a couple weeks ago, but then Hernandez showed up and interrupted the proceedings. We do now finally get the fully realized version of LAX. Machete was kicked out a couple weeks before, and now Hernandez is in, teaming with Homicide. The good LAX is finally here. So by the way, the winner of this challenge gives the loser 10 lashes with a leather strap, by the way. So Konnan says he's fighting tonight at a disadvantage because he hurt his knuckles last night, knocking out 15 Orlando punks, which is a great fucking visual. He says he's gonna whoop Bob's ass, Arriba La Raza, and all that. So then the James Gang and Bob Armstrong make their way down to the ring. Again, I cannot believe that this is the payoff for the breakup of the 3/4 live crew. Anyway, the match begins. It's an arm wrestling contest. They struggle the way you do, and they stall the way you do in an arm wrestling contest. Konnan is spending more than half of this thing with his elbow off the pad, by the way. So ultimately, Bullet Bob wins. Then BG grabs the mic and says it's time to attend to the business of kicking their asses, tells them to assume the position or they'll be suspended indefinitely. And so the guys have a wee bit of fun with the lashes. They take their time counting the first lash and then the second lash. And then on the third one, cute Kip, he jumps the count and smacks early. And then they say, oh, let's just do it all at once. Bam, bam, bam. And you hear BG counting on the mic. He goes, 8, 9. Bo Derek is a 10. And so, yeah, the lads have some fun. Rah, rah, James Gang and Bullet Bob are standing tall in this one. I give it a half star out of 5. That's about the most generous thing you can do with it. I give it the half star because, BG at the end getting funny saying Bo Derek is a 10. JB is in the promo zone with Team Jarrett. They're getting ready for a lethal lockdown. But wait, in comes Larry Exposition, letting us know the heels won the coin toss, so they'll have the man advantage. And he asks, do you know anything about this upcoming announcement? And then Jarrett's like, aren't you supposed to know everything? And then he tells them to take it up with Dave and or Earl Hebner, because that evil twin Earl knows a thing or two about screw jobs. Here we go, planting seed. We're sowing seeds so we can reap them once again. Anyway, James Storm gets some words in. He says that the fans didn't come to see Sting, they came to see them. Then Chris Harris and his very thin Fu Manchu says that we're the team that made 6 sides of steel famous and that your army's blood is not on our hands, it's on yours. And then Scott Steiner comes in and says, you see, Big Papa Pump, the big bad booty daddy, lives for moments like this. Sting, you made a big mistake and people are going to get hurt because of your mistake. See, I'm the hired hand. I'm the assassin in the ring tonight in that steel cage. There ain't gonna be no showtime in that steel cage, because I'm ready to snap! But first it's time for an Xscape match, where it's a 6-person match where tag rules apply, only 2 people in the ring at a time. It's pinfalls and submissions for eliminations at first, and then the final 2 people have to escape in order to ultimately win the match. Let's break down the participants. You've got Elix Skipper with Simon Diamond, Petey Williams with Coach Scott D'Amore, Puma, Chase Stevens, Garçon du Recoin, and Chris Sabin, who they're putting over as the captain for Team USA in the World Cup. One of the big underlying threads in this matchup is there's early collusion with D'Amore and Simon Diamond. I wish we saw more of their interactions at ringside. I feel during the entrance we lost like a potential great moment where it felt they were gonna kind of hug it out. You're like, oh, this kind of noise of happiness and jubilation. Tracksuit recognizing tracksuit, So D'Amore comes to the announce desk as the match is ongoing and saying, Skipper and Williams, it's gonna come down to the 2 of them, then they're gonna settle it mano a mano. Good back and forth with the masked boys in Puma and Shark. Nice Hurricane Rana off the top that popped on West. Shark Boys is looking great here. He hits a top rope Russian leg sweep to Skipper. Oh, and then Petey hits the Canadian Destroyer right away and eliminates him. We see Sabin and Williams working each other, and they bring up their rivalry on commentary, and that's when I went, oh, it's definitely coming down to the two of them, because there's no way these other people are going to make it that far. And just when I'm asking myself, why is Chase Stevens in this matchup, suddenly Chase Stevens is tagged in on. He goes on a bit of a run, and then like the scariest moment of the entire show takes place here, where Chase gets to the tippy top of the cage, and he goes and does this beautiful shooting star press, and nobody catches him. Oh my God, I could not believe that. Like, there's 4 people in that ring and not a soul gets him. Chase lands pretty much on his face, like Brock Lesnar style. Fucking hell, Shark Boy had as good a chance of catching him as those other guys did, and he wasn't even in the fucking arena at that point. Somehow he's still alive, long enough to get eliminated by Skipper. Williams leaps over Skipper and pins him for the 3. Now Elix is out. There's lots of upset between the wrestlers and the managers over it. Simon and Scott are about to come to blows when Elix is knocked into Diamond and he takes a spill. And sure enough, we are down to the 2 men we telegraphed from the start, and now one of them must escape. The match ends when both guys are climbing over the wall. Coach D'Amore is getting involved. Both men fighting on the outside. Petey falls and lands on Coach D'Amore's shoulders. Sabin just drops down and lands on his feet to win. I give it 3 stars out of 5. Okay, that finish popped me real good. I thought that was a real creative use of manager and cage shenanigans. I think the concept of the Xscape match is pretty fun, but all I'm thinking is if I'm Chase Stevens that night, I'm expecting a lot of big apologies and maybe a few free beers. Jeremy Borash backstage with Father James Mitchell and Abyss, and JB asks, after weeks of emotional and physical torture, has Abyss awoken the monster inside Christian Cage? And Mitchell goes, yes he has, and right on schedule. And he quotes Nietzsche and says that if Christian stares into the Abyss for too long, eventually the Abyss stares back at you. And he says, you know, you are the greatest wrestler on earth right now, and the championship you hold proves that, but you are not acting like a champion. Would a champion go off and make movies, leave his wife at home alone, let himself be humiliated for weeks? No, but you would, because that's how you roll. And he wraps it up by saying the only thing rolling tonight in the 6 sides of steel will be Christian Cage's head. Well, after Destination X, Samoa Joe was furious about his position where he lost the X Division Championship without being pinned or forced to submit. He's complaining to Larry Zbyszko, and so Zbyszko says, well, you need some challenges outside of the regular X Division, Joe. So next month at Lockdown, you're going against Sabu. So for the first time in months, we are going to see Sabu make his return to take on Joe in this cage match. And then after Joe regains the X Division title from Daniels on TV, now this match is for the belt. And I think on paper, this match should hopefully rock. But Sabu shows up. He's wearing a big arm cast because the night before in Mexico, he actually broke his arm. So he's already going in more hurt than he usually is. Should be very interesting. Sabu brings the chair into the ring, starts out by hucking it towards Joe. He misses at first, but not the second time. Boo is thrown into the cage a couple of times. Now he's busted open, starts to fight back. He hits some of his trademark moves. He jumps off the chair onto the cage wall, turns around with a big leg drop. I love that. Sabu gets out his spike, but Joe is able to fight his way out of that. Joe starts working the broken arm. Joe off the top rope hitting a Samoan cutter. Shoulders back, chest out. Still not enough. Sabu goes to the well one too many times, gets the chair thrown at him, muscle buster, and Joe wins to retain. I give it 3 stars out of 5. That was a very fun car crash of a match. Short and sweet. I read that this was originally supposed to go longer, but apparently Sabu was in just too much pain, so they decided to go home a little bit earlier. But I think it was, less is more with Sabu. He was able to bust out all the hits and still do his thing. Looked pretty good in defeat. Pretty soon he's off to WWE for that official ECW revival, so you will not be seeing Sabu in TNA until, I guess, Hardcore Justice? A while after this. JB is in the Canada zone as Team Canada practice the national anthem. Bobby Roode says the last time they saw Team 3D in a cage, they left them laid out under the Canadian flag, but tonight they'll be singing the anthem as well. And Scott D'Amore says he's tired of Team 3D's shtick about how they're the greatest tag team, 17 tag titles. Well, you've never held the NWA tag belt, so none of that shit counts, hoser. They're gonna wrap up with another rehearsal when Big Man Lair Bear wants to know what the announcement is. And D'Amore at this point, he really turns on Zbyszko. He really hits a switch and is super pissed at Larry now, saying, "You've been throwing everyone under the bus for months, and now you might see what it feels like finally." And as Team Canada storms out, Zbyszko, unable to read the room, he just goes, "So does that mean you're not going to help me or what?" Coming up next, an Anthem match. And no, the winners don't eventually get bought out by Anthem Sports, as Team 3D take on Team Canada. It's a continuation of the feud these two teams have been waging for months, now with added patriotism. It's capture the flag rules. It's, you got two flags on poles, bro, and the winner gets their national anthem played. Wow, what a bonus that would be for Team Canada, who literally come out every single match they're in to the Canadian national anthem. We see Bully Ray and Brother Runt wearing war paint. They're wearing the camo on their faces. Devon, I noticed, was not wearing any. But again, why didn't Bully do this during the 8-man war matchup? So at first you got Runt and Eric Young guarding their respective flags as Rude fights Ray and A1 fights Devon. Runt tries to be sneaky, walking across to the other side of the cage, but gets cut off. Bully with a super Bubba Bomb. Look at the bounce that Rude takes on that. It's just basically a tornado 6-man where 3 to 4 of the guys at any given time take breaks while like the other 2 guys do a spot. And then it's like they sell and then 2 more guys come and do a spot and they sell. It's just waves of that for a while. A lot of walking and talking and punching in between. The referee gets smooshed. Team 3D, they grab the flag, they bring it down, but the referee's not up, guys. Didn't see it, so it doesn't count, but the music does play for a half second, which is hysterical.
Oh, wait a minute, where's the referee? The referee is down! Referee!
Runt gets obliterated, Ray and Devon are out, Eric putting the US flag back up and is like, phew! Coach D'Amore lays out the gatekeeper with a chair, brings out a table, feels like they could just grab the Canadian flag with all the time they're spending doing this setup, but in the end it costs them as EY gets nothing but table, Rude takes the 3D, Runt climbs up and grabs the flag, Team 3D wins for America. They raise the flag up and they play this really lame version of the anthem throughout. It's like, think of a generic like local car dealership for like Memorial Day blowout sale or whatever, just the most generic royalty-free anthem rockin' song you can come up with. That's what they played here.
I would like all of my brothers and sisters to stand on their feet!
But it does lead to a hilarious bit at the end, because right when the song goes, "Land of the Free," that's when they hit the 3D on Coach D'Amore, so the timing was perfect. That was not good. When you have this many people in a match with rules like this, it really feels like you should not have a cage. Like, let them explore the space a little bit, and so that really worked against them for this. After the matchup and after the song is done playing on the PA, the crowd actually sings the national anthem a cappella, and you can hear it as like TNA and West are talking about whatever. My favorite part is West going, "Oh, let's lay out for this." But they don't. They just keep talking over the anthem. There is no laying out. Suddenly, Christy Hemme has arrived in TNA, the 2004 Diva Search winner who recently left WWE. She shows up to a nice reception, does a lap around the ring, hands the envelope to Mike Tenay, then leaves. So then Tenay gets the letter and he reads it, and now his voice is being piped out into the impact zone for everyone to hear, where he basically says, oh, there's gonna be huge restructuring at every level in TNA management starting very soon. Negotiations have just concluded with a high-profile individual who will soon become the public face of TNA management. And this individual's first order of business, Larry Zbyszko, you've been placed on probation. And as soon as we hear that, Larry comes out himself going, oh, I can't believe this, Tenay. Why would you stab me in the back after everything I did to help mentor you in WCW? And Tenay is like, the fuck, man, I'm just the messenger.
Who signed that nonsense? Did you do anything wrong? Who signed it?
So then Tenay's like, okay, point number 2. One of Zbyszko's more recent decisions has been overturned, so now being reinstated to TNA, it's Raven. We've not seen Raven since he was screwed over by Zbyszko at Final Resolution. Larry runs into the ring and pins himself inside the cage to keep him safe. That was pretty much the segment there. It feels like it was kind of a tease within a tease, where it's like, ooh, big announcement coming. Well, actually, the real big announcement's coming a little bit later, but right now, here's Christy Hemme with an envelope, and so it's kind of forbearing what's going to be happening here. And, you know, the plot is thickening with Zbyszko and his machinations. Raven is back. What is that going to mean for Zbyszko's plans? How does this fit into the grander conspiracies? Go tune in to, my Hard Justice review, which I did last year, Hard Justice 06, where you can find out just who this new public face of the management's going to be. We'll find out a little bit later as we go along this timeline, though. So if you're patient, you'll find out. JB is backstage with the world champ Christian Cage in the most personal fight of his life against the monster Abyss. What are his thoughts? Christian just quietly removes his entrance jacket, looks at JB, and just walks away. Ooh, that's intensity. That was so great. I said earlier, less is more, and that applies here. And wow, how good it feels to finally see a world title angle in TNA with some motherfucking stakes. 6 sides of steel as Christian Cage defends against Abyss. After the events of Destination X, James Mitchell's been demanding a world title match for Abyss. I don't know if Christian ever says no to that, but nevertheless, Mitchell is basically, he's going full scorched earth on Christian. He says, we know where you live, and sure enough, we get some shades of DDP stalking Sarah in 2001. We get some stalkerish video of poor Denise, Christian Cage's wife, being stalked upon from some sneaky, voyeuristic Alex Shelley business, and we see a moment like later where Christian actually approaches Alex Shelley outside the house. He gets jumped by Abyss, and he's like beaten up in his own home. He's getting drowned in the pool, his own backyard pool, and Mitchell's like, Abyss, stop, you can't win a title off a dead man. And then we see Christian fighting back with a tire iron to Abyss as he's ready to die for this shit, yo. What a great hard left turn this was. Again, it's so nice to go from that boring, Monty Brown program that wasn't that interesting, for that to be Christian's first little feud, and then to go from that to this. It is a big escalation, certainly, but I think it works. Christian needs this. He needs to be more of a serious guy. He needs to have competition like that actually can pose a real, legitimate threat, and Abyss is this big, unkillable beast, and so I think it's a perfect matchup. It does feel like they are rushing to make it so that it's worthy of a cage match, which is more than they can say for other cage matches on this show, but they're definitely giving you enough oomph and enough interesting stuff to go, oh yeah, this needs to be in a cage. They actually fight up and down through the crowd before the match officially begins. Cage is slamming the door into Abyss repeatedly. He gets distracted by Sinman for a second. That allows Abyss to hit the champ back. We actually get some dueling chants for Abyss and Christian from the crowd. Very interesting dynamic. Get a lot of cage on cage action as Abyss just throws Christian around. Christian starts to fight back. We get a pair of ref bump fakeouts. Just kidding. The ref actually does get hit. Guys, 2 matches in a row with referee bumps, in a cage no less, is just too much. Cage leaps off the wall and hits the tornado DDT onto Abyss. He hits the unprettier. The referee gets back up. It's not enough. Christian goes up top, has a think, goes to the very top of the cage, hits a super frog splash right on the button. Somehow, Abyss kicks out. Abyss fights back again. He brings out Dutt. Cage grabbing Mitchell's cane and breaks it over Abyss's back. Cage goes to the tippy top again. Abyss choke shoves the referee into the cage wall. That sends Christian teetering. They fight up top. Christian throwing Abyss back first into the tax. My God, Slick Johnson in the ring now, but can't count the 3 in time. Cage goes for a belt shot, but walks right into a black hole slam. Somehow, the champion kicks out. But then Mitchell's like, Abyss, do you know what that pile of tacks needs? More thumbtacks. But Christian's able to slip out of a jam, hits the unprettier on the tacks. And I love Don West at this point because he just starts screaming, right in the face! Right in the face! 5 times in a row. The passion is so real. The cover and the win. Christian Cage wins in the cage. He celebrates, he goes to leave, but he turns around. He wants a piece of Mitchell, but that costs him big because Abyss attacks him, knocks him out with the chain, and now Cage is busted open. He's being hanged over the ropes. Christian, if you just let go, it would probably just unravel around you. So Cage collapses, and Mitchell takes the world title and hands it to Abyss. He makes good on his promise that Abyss would walk out with the title. Technicalities, you sneaky Sinman. I give this 4 stars out of 5. What a great performance by both individuals. This is exactly what both guys needed. Christian looking like a great world beater, very valiant babyface here. Abyss is a killer, making Christian look great as well. I mean, you really couldn't ask for a better match out of both guys. And interesting twist at the end where Abyss steals the belt. How's Christian going to get this one back, gang? Before the main event, JB is backstage with Sting's Warriors. Ron Killing starts out with some lyrics from his entrance, then he goes, "You know what's up? War." Come on, you guys, I am begging you to come up with a different word for an escalated conflict. AJ Styles says that Sting could have wrestled anywhere, but he chose TNA. He could have teamed with anybody, but he chose us, so we won't let the Stinger down. Rhino says when the cage closes on them like animals, no one will feel more at home than the War Machine, and he promises to take someone out with a gore. Then Sting walks in and goes, "Ow!" and says it's showtime. So we go to that match now. It's Lethal Lockdown as Jarrett's army takes on Sting's Warriors. Well, you know, we could have gone with Sting's Squadron, but this match is already a derivative of War Games, so we might as well just keep that trend going. So, as we saw at the end of Destination X, Steve Borden, the man called Steve, returned to fight Jeff Jarrett. Scott Steiner came in as the hired hand for Jarrett's army, and since then Steiner's just been throwing fools around, beating them up, and so Sting has asked for this matchup. He wants to put Jarrett in a position where there's nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. So this is basically War Games, but it's one ring instead of two, although it's 6 sides instead of 8, so hey, you know, meeting them halfway there. And then you've got, once everyone is in, the match beyond, the roof lowers and there be weapons on the roof. What a shock. The heels have the advantage, and to start out, you've got Chris Harris coming out alongside Gail Kim and Jackie Gata, going against AJ Styles for the first 5 minutes. Wildcats busted open in the early going. AJ hits the Styles Clash in the last moments of the first period, briefly forgets you can't go for a pinfall yet as James Storm shows up next. AJ knocks the door open, which blasts Gail Kim on the outside. That looked nuts. AMW begin to work over AJ 2-on-1. AJ is now bleeding, and after 2 minutes, Rhino shows up. Up next for Team Heel is Jeff Jarrett, who is immediately jumped by the babyfaces on the outside. Things settle down, then Ron Killings comes out next to even the odds. We get a super duper Tower of Doom spot just as Scott Steiner comes in to make his in-ring debut. He starts out with suplexes and clotheslines, just picking up and dropping people left and right. There is a big audible steroids chant after that, worth pointing out. And then after the final seconds tick down, Sting finally makes his way into the ring. He starts hitting those backhands. He's a house of fire. Quadruple decker Stinger splash. What in the fucking hell does Sting even need a team for, I wonder? By the way, the way Jarrett is posted up against the wall is incredible. Okay, so now it's Sting's cue for some reason. Like, he's been in the ring for a minute, but only now he goes like this, bring it down. So now they bring it down. The roof lowers. We get the sparkly pyro. The weapons are there. And now it comes down to the first pinfall or submission. Right away, Styles and Storm both manage to wiggle up through the ceiling and are now on top of the structure. They has fight, but now Gail Kim starts to climb up. AJ puts a stop to her, which allows Jackie Gata to pants Gail in front of everyone. DW says, "You gotta love that," as the ladies exit stage left. By the way, what purpose do either of these women really have in the storyline at this point? Because when I'm watching on TV, there's like nothing between these two that would seem like it's worthy of continuing the build. Like, where does Jackie fit into all this? With Sting there, it's like now whatever leverage Jackie might have had that was then washed away from like, oh, the blackmail, now it's like, where does Jackie's hope come from? Like, where is she going to fit in? And where does Gail fit in? Because if Jackie doesn't have a place, what the hell's Gail doing? Both Jarrett and Sting have an acoustic equalizer and they face off. Sting then swaps the guitar for a bat. He breaks Jarrett's guitar again. He goes for his own El Kabong, but Steiner hits him in the dick. Meanwhile, AJ has set up a Jeff Hardy memorial ladder up on top of the cage. He climbs it, hangs off a truss, then splashes onto James Storm through a table. What in the hell? Meanwhile, back in the ring, the rest of the match is ongoing. Truth takes the stroke on a chair as we hear Big Papa Pump is gassed as hell as he breathlessly tells a fan, Your mother sucks! The camera misses the gore by Rhino. Steiner puts Rhino in the reclino. Sting hits him with the death drop. Then Harris dinks Sting with a fistful of handcuffs. Harris puts the Scorpion Deathlock on the Stinger himself, but then Sting ends up picking the leg and turning it around into his own hold. Harris taps out. Sting's Warriors have won the battle, and we have almost no time to reflect on this moment as the show is just about to go off the air less than 30 seconds after the final bell. The show fades to black. Also, Chris Harris, he was one of the fake Stings who attacked the real one at Halloween Havoc 2000, so felt like a big full circle moment, that finish there. I'm going to give this match 2.5 stars out of 5. It might have hit a bit harder if this weren't the umpteenth cage match for the evening, and the fans might have reacted to it a bit more. It was a fine match in the grand history of War Games type matches. This was just kind of one of them. And Styles and James Storm doing their big spot on the cage roof, that was crazy. Big win for Sting and his story, and a big win for the anti-Jarrett contingent. Ultimately a meaningless win, but a big win nonetheless. So my grade for TNA Lockdown 2006 is a C+. It does feel like a bit of an improvement from Destination X the previous month, although, they did beat the cage match to death by the end here. A lot of matches on this show didn't need a cage match, which is an unfortunate side effect of trying to book like a regular wrestling show, but then you also want to do this stunt booking where it's like every match has got to be a cage. So okay, and then you run into the same problem that you would have with future Hell in a Cell shows and other themed shows where it's like this doesn't really need the theme. That being said, there were some matches that made great use of the space, like Senshi and Daniels, and like Joe and Sabu and Cage and Abyss. I thought those are all really, really strong matches on an otherwise kind of a flat show. Again, the cage match novelty wears off pretty quickly. TNA, at this point, after watching this far into 2006, I'm still kind of in the middle of the road about them as a whole, as an overall product, but then I have to remember that a week after this show takes place, God is going to make his in-ring debut at Backlash 2006, so, I feel pretty good. But what did you think of Lockdown 06? What were your favorite matches and moments, and how about this review? Let me know in the comment section below. Now, next time here in the TNA verse, when we go back to 2006, the numbers don't lie, and they will spell disaster for us at Sacrifice 2006. But the actual next time, before we get to Sacrifice, we are going back to the year 2001 in the WWF. We are hitting that really interesting, murky middle point. It's post-Monday Night War, pre-invasion. We're in the thick of the two-man power trip, and we are going to start our little return to filling in that last gap of 01 with a little trip across the pond for a UK exclusive pay-per-view, Insurrection 2001. But until then, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.